Hi, you clicked onto today's tropical tidbit for Friday. Notice again what's happening over here in the Atlantic. Subsidence galore over here. Cape Verde season shuts down. Igor was the big last hurrah, and we got, Lisa, remnants of Julia, but really nothing going on out here at all. And as soon as this happened, remember, you shift the substance out here, you get the hurricanes out of here, and then bam, you light up this area, which has been just waiting to go nuts over here. And now we have a named storm, Matthew, cruising towards Central America here. Here's the close-up of this. The center is under the northeast side of the convective ball because of some shear, not really detrimental shear. Seriously, easterly shear for monsoonal depressions is great for them in the long run, not necessarily the short term for rapid intensification, but in the long run it's good for them. But the thing is, this is moving towards land, and this is a really problematic little devil of a storm. The forecast for this is an absolute headache for many. And I'm going to show you right off the bat, the first problem I have with this is that the NHC track is too far south, and here I think this is going to hit the Gulf of Honduras before trying to move in. Might clip the northern edge of these. It's going to hit the water over here. It's not staying completely over land over here. You can already see it deviating north of the forecast track as soon as an hour after they release the advisory. So this is too far south. Now, there are two main things that can happen here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make an argument for both sides of this, and I'm just going to try to illustrate for you the two different things that could happen with this storm. The first one is like the NHC says, this goes and dies over here over Central America and tries to come north, but over the Yucatan, pretty much dying before it can do anything. This would end up in massive amounts of rain for Central America, which would be a big story there. But notice how the cloud envelope is starting to extend eastward away from the system over here, and notice this little upper low over Hispaniola. This is important because what this is doing is this is ventilating this area to the southwest of the upper low over here. So this area to the east of Matthew over here is getting ventilated by this upper low that is going to be sitting here for the next 24 to 48 hours before lifting north. And what we're looking at over here is, if we look at the water vapor, we see this trough going by in the northern U.S. You can see it's not making much progress over here in Texas, and we see the ridge, and we're starting to think, well, there's no short wave coming down to get this yet. So this is going in, dying, and we see this upper low. Eventually this will get taken out. When this gets across, we're going to have a short wave eventually dive in. It's not immediately obvious, which is why we need models, because these kind of things can happen out of the blue. Some short wave is going to come down, dig in, become this trough down here, and eventually start trying to draw all sorts of stuff out of the Caribbean. Now, we got this ventilating this area to the east of Matthew. If this comes in and dies in here, then that is quickly going to shift the focus of heat back to the east, and you will start to see low pressure develop back over here and reform to the east of where Matthew went in. And this is going to be iffy because it's going to almost seem like a reformation of the storm instead of a new one. If it develops a new storm in here, we'd probably name it Nicole. The reason this seems so unusual is usually when this happens, where it's sort of a reformation to the east back over the water, you usually have a tropical disturbance that is not a storm, moves in, monsoons around over here, and then you get reformation to the east of it over the water. The difference this time is that we actually have a named storm that's going in, weakening, and then you could get new low pressure forming up here. And we see this on the European. If we go out to day 2, you can see it takes the storm inland over here, and then by day 5 it reforms low pressure off to the northeast over the water over here. You can see the trough digs in to get it. We go out to day 8, it brings it up over southeast Florida and east of here, and clips the Carolinas on its way out. Same kind of thing on the GFS, but we go out to day 2 over here. You see it's inland, okay, over Belize, and then we go to 96 hours, and this is where it starts getting a little bit mucky because the GFS can't decide what it wants to do. Here's the low pressure center north of Honduras 2 days later. One could make an argument that what's left of Matthew is actually over here near the southeast bay of Campeche, and yet the low pressure's over here. And you could argue that something else is being drawn up out of that area from the southeast, north of Panama over here from the old part of the circulation. Basically what it's doing is putting the low pressure where the mean position of these two areas are. So it's really hard to figure out what the model really wants to do here. But we go out to day 6 and it somehow gets it together, and look what starts going on in the Northwest Caribbean. Then by day 8, this is actually a pretty big problem for Florida over here as this comes up and this is going to be a bad storm for them. This is what we've been watching for. Again, the message here is that really either way this goes, I don't care where the storm is by day 4 over here. I don't care if it's here or here. Eventually we're going to get something like this to come up and threaten this area of the world right here within the next 10 days. We are going to get something coming out. The heat has to be released and brought out. The other, so this is the new consensus now. The Hurricane Center says it's going to die, and they haven't mentioned it yet, but they probably believe what the models are saying, that something else will come out of here and try to form in the Northwest Caribbean. But not so fast, because again, this track is too far south. If we take this to the next level over here, and if we zoom in even farther, you can see the center of this thing in here, and notice the movement. This is supposed to, again, here's the track almost due west right into Nicaragua over here, but if we look at the really zoomed in, we can see it coming more northwest over here with time, trying to pull farther north, and recon vortex messages in the recent last couple of hours actually confirm this. A slight turn to the north, a wobble, if you'd like to call it a wobble, but you can make an argument that it's trying to come further northwest over here, and I don't think this is already too far north of the track to be staying over land. It's going to hit the Gulf of Honduras before getting well into Central America, and one could make the argument that it's trying to come farther north because you got the high near Hatteras over here. It's getting pushed eastward as this trough comes across in here. As this high gets pushed eastward, the flow in here to the southwest of it is actually more fragile than it may seem. You push it out here, the storm is no longer perpendicular to the high center, meaning it's going to try to gain latitude over here. If the high is directly north of it, it'll go straight west. If the high is out here, it's not. It's going to try to come more northwest over here, and it may be just a wobble, but if it comes up and then stays over water over here, it will stay together longer, and if it stays together longer, if you keep the circulation well defined, it'll still make a run at Belize over here and might move inland, but if you keep the circulation more defined, you make it harder to develop something out here, because remember, to reform a circulation, first you have to weaken the old one. That's why when you strip convection off of a storm center, you'll see it reform under the convection, but to do that you had to strip the convection from the first one to get it to weaken enough to form a new one. Since we have a named storm, the center is well enough defined that if you don't weaken it, you have to kill it to get it to redevelop out here. You really have to kill it, and that's why this track would kill it, and you would almost be guaranteed to get something out here, because again, we have to get this heat out. Something's going to form and come up here. That's pretty much, I think, a given. I'm very confident in that. We're going to get something to come out of this, but if we get this to come over the water and try to get it to stall, the high is going to go out here. Something within 36 to 48 hours, you are going to see a trough dig in here very rapidly. If this comes in here and stalls near Belize, you could see it get caught and then hug the coast or in the water and then come out over here without actually having to get development off to its southeast. I think there's an argument for both of these cases right here. And this is a very intriguing forecast situation. Either way, though, whichever way this goes, is going to be very bad for Central America. Whole lot of rainfall in here. Whole lot of rainfall. This is the first concern for us. I think that I'm not quite ready to make a call on this. I'd like to see how it looks if it gets out into the water in the Gulf of Honduras. I want to see how it looks in here. I really don't think the Hurricane Center track is going to stay over land this whole time. I think it's coming far enough north to skirt the water over here, and when it gets in here, we'll see how things go, how fast it's moving, whether it's starting to slow down and stall near the Belize coast over here. We'll get a good look at it on Doppler radar out of Belize, and then see whether any of this funny stuff starts to go on. But either way, again, the overall message here is no matter which way this goes, we are going to get a storm to form in here within the next 5 to 10 days and move up in here and threaten these guys during the next week or so. We're going to get something coming out. No one should be letting their guard down in here just because the track is inland. I think we're going to get something coming up either way, because that's what the pattern favors. We decreased the hurricane activity out here. We started building it in here, and this is going to continue into October. We are not done. Okay, look at the upward motion here, just continuing to increase. Day 10, day 15, greens all over the place, and then you can see on the Canadian Ensemble's day 16, look at all the low pressure still sitting in this area. This area is still ripe, and you got troughs coming in that can drag this stuff up into the southeastern U.S., eastern Gulf of Mexico. So this is a dangerous pattern that we've been setting up for you guys, and hopefully everyone's ready for this. October is going to be the most dangerous month for the U.S. coastline for this season, and we will continue to watch to see how the situation evolves. Alright, that's it for today. Thanks for watching.